There have been 706 NBA games where a player scored 50 points or more. Wilt Chamberlain has 118 of them, which means that 1 out of 6 games with 50 points was Wilt's doing. When it comes to 60-point games, Wilt Chamberlain again leads the way with 32, while all other players in history managed to do it 61 times, meaning that Wilt has 35% of all 60-point games in NBA history. Chamberlain dominates the 70-point game category as well, with 6 out of 15 games with 70 points or more. But then, of course, is the 100-point game, where Wilt stands alone. On March 2, 1962, Chamberlain accomplished one of the most mythical achievements in sports history, scoring a 100 against the New York Knicks. Even though there's no video evidence to prove it, there have been many stories surrounding Wilt's historic game and the unbelievable 1962 season when Wilt averaged 50 points per game. This is the breakdown of the most incredible scoring season of all time, a recap of Wilt's career and many records that will never be broken. Wilton Norman Chamberlain was born on August 21, 1936, in Philadelphia. He was the 6th of 9 children, and from an early age it was clear that he was different. By the time he was 10, he was already taller than most adults, and when he enrolled in high school, he had already reached 6'11". But Wilt wasn't just tall, he was an athlete in every sense. He excelled in track and field, competing in high jump, long jump, and even running events. Chamberlain once ran the 100-yard dash in 10.9 seconds and triple jumped over 50 feet. When he first started with basketball, though, Wilt wasn't too excited, and he found it too soft compared to track and field. But once he realized his height gave him an enormous advantage, he started enjoying it and playing it more often. At Overbrook High School in Philadelphia, Chamberlain dominated from the get-go, putting up ridiculous numbers. He had multiple 70-point games, and he even eclipsed 90 points once, leading Overbrook to 2 state championships. By the time he graduated, Wilt was averaging 37 points per game and was wanted by every college in the country. Eventually, he chose Kansas, where he continued to put up monster stats. In his college debut, he scored 52 points and grabbed 31 rebounds, breaking the Jayhawks' record for points and rebounds. Wilt was so dominant that his opponents started holding the ball with no intention of scoring, as the NCAA still hadn't adopted the shot clock, which was first introduced in 1984. The NCAA also changed the free throw rule because of Wilt, requiring both feet to be behind the line after the shot, simply because Wilt was able to dunk or lay the ball by jumping from the free throw line. An inbounds pass over the backboard was also banned because of Chamberlain, as nobody could stop Wilt from converting the out-of-bounds alley-oop. But even with all the rule changes intended to stop Wilt, he still led the Jayhawks to the 1957 NCAA Finals against undefeated North Carolina. As soon as the game started, the Tar Heels started triple-teaming Wilt, with one player fronting him, the other backing him up, and the third arriving as soon as he got the ball. The game went into overtime, where North Carolina deliberately held the ball as long as possible to stop Wilt from scoring. With 10 seconds remaining and Kansas up by 1, North Carolina was awarded 2 free throws, which eventually won them the game. But despite the loss, Chamberlain, who scored 23 points and 14 rebounds, was elected the most outstanding player of the Final Four. But he was devastated and considered it the most painful loss of his life. For the 1958 season, Wilt averaged 30 points per game, despite all the opponents holding the ball and employing all kinds of non-basketball tactics to stop him. And because he missed several games due to a urinary infection, Kansas finished the season with an 18-5 record and didn't qualify for the NCAA tournament. Now, at the time, collegiate players were required to stay in college all 4 years before gaining eligibility for the NBA. But Wilt was fed up with collegiate games and everybody stalling the game to stop him. Also, Chamberlain knew his worth, and he wanted to make money. So he left college and sold a story titled "Why I Am Leaving College" to Look magazine for $10,000, which was more than some NBA players were making at the time. Then he signed a professional deal with the Harlem Globetrotters for $50,000, touring the world and becoming a global sensation. But after a year with the Globetrotters, Wilt finally joined the NBA in 1959, signing with the Philadelphia Warriors for $30,000, thus becoming the highest-paid player in the league. At 7'1" and 260 pounds of pure muscle and athleticism, there was nobody in the NBA who could stop Wilt, even as a rookie. Even though he could have dunked almost every time he had the ball, that was boring for Wilt, and he wanted to show the crowds that he was a finesse player. So he scored in a variety of ways: finger rolls, fadeaways, jump hooks, leading the NBA in scoring with 37 points per game, in rebounds with 27 boards per game, and he would likely also lead the league in block shots if the NBA counted blocks back then. Chamberlain became the first rookie to win the MVP award, and the Warriors improved by 17 wins, making the East Conference Finals against the mighty Boston Celtics. The matchup between Chamberlain and Bill Russell would become the biggest storyline of the next decade. And in the first meeting between these two Goliaths, it was Russell who came out on top. They both averaged 27 rebounds per game in the series, and despite Wilt averaging 30 points to Russell's 20, the deeper Celtics defeated the Warriors in 6 games. In the following season, Wilt further improved his numbers, leading the NBA in scoring, rebounding, and field goal percentage, with 38 points, 27 rebounds, and 51% shooting. The Big Dipper scored almost 32% of his team's points and collected 30% of their rebounds. But his greatness just didn't convert into wins. Philadelphia won fewer games than the previous year, and in the playoffs, they didn't win a single game, getting swept by the Syracuse Nationals in the first round. Chamberlain wasn't happy with his coach, Neil Johnston, and was tired of constantly being doubled and triple-teamed, but his teammates not being able to exploit the open court. So, Wilt threatened to retire, which was a tactic he would often use to extract more money, and the Warriors owner had no choice but to increase his salary to $65,000. For the 1962 season, they also hired a new coach, Frank McGuire, who happened to be the one who was on the bench for North Carolina when they defeated Chamberlain in the 1957 NCAA Finals. Now, Wilt respected McGuire, and it resulted in the most dominant season in NBA history. Coach McGuire realized that Wilt was unstoppable, and he was determined to play him every second of every game. In fact, Wilt played all but 8 minutes of the entire season due to an ejection, and he ended up averaging 48.5 minutes per game due to several games that went into overtime. Chamberlain started the season strong, averaging 45 points in the first 2 months of the season. On December 8th against the Lakers, in a game that saw 3 overtimes, Wilt broke the NBA scoring record with 78 points, which he scored by shooting 62 shots and attempting 31 free throws in 63 minutes on the court. During December, Chamberlain averaged 52 points per game, and in January, he kept the tab running, averaging 51.8 with another 70-point game against Chicago. Out of the 18 games he played in February, Wilt eclipsed 60 points 6 times. But despite his monstrous scoring numbers, nobody could predict what would happen on March 2nd against the New York Knicks. The NBA decided that the game would be played in Hershey, Pennsylvania, in order to promote the league outside the usual venues and attract new fans who weren't able to come to games in big cities. The contest was scheduled to be played in an old hockey arena, and it only attracted 4,124 spectators, despite a 7,000-seat capacity. It was nearly the end of the season, the playoff seeding was already determined, and it was supposed to be a meaningless regular season game, with almost no reporters covering it. The Knicks were the second worst NBA team that season, and their starting center, Phil Jordan, was out with an illness. The Knicks instead started a second-year center, Darryl Imhoff, who was 3 inches shorter and 40 pounds lighter than Chamberlain. When the game started, it was business as usual for Wilt, but even by his own lofty standards, he had a great first quarter, scoring 23 points and hitting all 9 of his free throws, which was usually the only weakness in his game. That season, per McGuire's suggestion, Wilt started to shoot freebies underhanded, and he improved from 50% in 1961 to 61% in 1962. In the second quarter of the game, Wilt slowed down a bit, finishing the half with 41 points, which wasn't anything extraordinary, as he would often score 30 or more by halftime. But in the third quarter, the Warriors kept feeding Wilt, especially because Imhoff had to sit out due to foul trouble, and Chamberlain tormented the Knicks' third-string center Dave Budd, who only weighed 205 pounds, 60 pounds less than Wilt. After 3 quarters, Wilt scored 69 points, after which the Warriors players only had one goal: for Wilt to break his scoring record of 78 points. He scored his 79th point with 7 minutes 51 seconds left, breaking his own record and sending the crowd into a frenzy. "Give it to Wilt! Give the ball to Wilt!" they screamed, demanding that Wilt score 100. Even the announcers got into it, counting each basket and announcing how many points he had after each score. The Knicks players didn't like it and didn't want to become a mockery, so they began intentionally fouling any Warrior except Chamberlain, keeping the ball out of the center's hands. But then, the Warriors started fouling the Knicks as well, to keep more seconds on the shot clock and to give more scoring opportunities to Wilt. With 2 minutes left, Chamberlain had 94 points, and the 100 was within reach. And with 46 seconds left, Chamberlain got free from all 5 Knicks players, got the alley-oop pass, and put the ball into the basket to hit 100 points. The arena exploded, and over 200 spectators rushed the floor to congratulate Wilt, and the game was stopped for 10 minutes before the final 46 seconds were played out. And during that final stretch, Chamberlain just stood in the middle circle, waiting for the game to end, and not wanting to touch the ball, as 100 sounded better than 102. The Warriors defeated the Knicks 169-147, with Chamberlain shooting 36 for 63 from the field and an impressive 28 for 32 from the free throw line, along with 25 rebounds and 2 assists. Other than breaking the scoring record, Wilt also set records for the most field goals made and attempted, most free throws made, most points in a half, most field goals attempted in a half, and most field goals attempted in a quarter. After the game, Wilt was in the dressing room, and he wasn't celebrating like the rest of his teammates. Al Attles came to him and asked, "What's the matter?" "I never thought I'd take 60 shots in a game," Wilt replied. "But you made 36, that's better than 50%, Al said. "But Al, 63 shots, Al," shaking his head, believing that he was too selfish. Then the Warriors' PR manager Harvey Pollack entered the locker room, took a piece of paper, and scribbled the number 100 on it. An Associated Press photographer, Paul Vathis, one of the rare reporters who were at the game, took one of the most famous photos in NBA history. "I lived in New York and I was out with a friend. I got no sleep at all before that game. I was up for at least 24 hours. I drove from New York to Philly, where we caught a bus to Hershey. I tried to sleep on the bus, but I couldn't," Will said, after failing to mention that he also took a girl home that night and she was the reason for his lack of sleep. 2 days after the 100-point game, the Warriors played the Knicks again in Madison Square Garden, and Imhoff got a standing ovation for holding Chamberlain to 58 points. For the season, Wilt averaged an insane 50.4 points, attempting 39.5 shots per game and 17 free throws, all of which are NBA records that still stand and will likely never be broken. In the entire season, Wilt failed to score 30 points only twice, and he scored less than 40 points just 17 times. Despite the best individual season in NBA history, Chamberlain didn't win the MVP, finishing second behind Bill Russell and receiving fewer first-place votes than Oscar Robertson, who averaged a triple-double for the season. In the 1962 playoffs, the Warriors got past Syracuse in 5 games, with Chamberlain averaging 37 points and 26 rebounds. But in the conference finals, the Celtics were once again stronger, defeating Philadelphia 109-107 in the deciding Game 7. For the 1963 season, the Warriors relocated to San Francisco, and in his first season in California, Wilt continued his scoring barrage, averaging 44.8 points per game, eclipsing the 70-point mark on 3 occasions. However, a move out west wasn't an option for Coach McGuire, who resigned before the season, and the same was for Hall of Fame small forward Paul Arizin, who decided to retire. With some other players switching teams, the Warriors won just 31 games and failed to qualify for the playoffs. For the 63-64 NBA season, Chamberlain got another coach, former NBA player and ex-soldier Alex Hannum. Hannum was a smart disciplinarian who emphasized defense and passing and was not afraid to stand up to the dominant Chamberlain, who would not communicate with coaches he did not like. But under Hannum's guidance and the arrival of rookie big man Nate Thurmond, a future Hall of Famer, the Warriors finished first in the West, which automatically qualified them for the conference finals. There, they outplayed the St. Louis Hawks in 7 games, with Chamberlain averaging 38 points and 23 rebounds to reach his first NBA Finals. Of course, the opponent in the finals was Boston, and this time around, it wasn't particularly close. Despite averaging a series-leading 29 points and 27 rebounds, Wilt couldn't stop the Celtics' balanced offense, who had 6 players averaging double figures. Boston defeated San Francisco in 5 games, and it wouldn't be the last time Russell got the better of Wilt. In 1965, the NBA widened the lane from 12 to 16 feet, directly because of Chamberlain, as the league wanted to encourage more players to move outside the key, leading to a shift towards more outside shots and a more diverse offensive game. And just 2 years after the Warriors relocated from Philadelphia to San Francisco, they got into financial trouble, and Wilt was the main reason why. His salary outweighed the profits the franchise made from selling tickets, and after the Warriors started the season with a disastrous 11-33 record, their only option was to sell their best player. At the 1965 All-Star Weekend, Chamberlain was traded to Philadelphia, who got their new franchise after the collapse of the Syracuse Nationals, with the new name the 76ers. In return, the Warriors received a much-needed $150,000, along with Paul Newman, Connie Dierking, and Lee Schaffer. And even though he didn't like the Sixers coach, Dolph Schayes, with whom he had many fierce battles when Schayes was still playing, Wilt fit in nicely with the Sixers players, future Hall of Famer Hal Greer, and forwards Luke Jackson and Chet Walker. In the first round of the playoffs, the Sixers got past Oscar Robertson and Cincinnati in 4 games, with Wilt not leading his team in scoring for the first time, as Hal Greer averaged 28 points per game to Chamberlain's 27. In the conference finals, a familiar opponent awaited: the omnipresent Bill Russell and the Celtics. Wilt played arguably his best ever series against Russell, averaging 31 points and 31 rebounds, while shooting 55% from the field. Russell averaged 15 points and 25 rebounds on 45% shooting. But thanks to Sam Jones, who averaged 29 points per game, the series once again went to a deciding Game 7. Chamberlain had a strong game, hitting 12 out of 15 shots from the field, scoring 30 points along with 32 rebounds. But once again, it was the Celtics' team effort and the inclusion of role players that gave Boston an advantage. Boston had 24 assists in the game, compared to Philadelphia's 12, and behind Sam Jones's 37 points, the Celtics held a 110-109 lead with 5 seconds left. However, the 76ers had the ball behind the Celtics basket, and all they had to do was inbound the ball and give it to Wilt to try to win the game. But what happened next was one of the most famous plays in NBA playoff history.
He gets it out deep, and Havlicek steals it over the San Jones.
Once again, Wilt came up empty-handed in what was his 4th playoff loss to Russell. But in 1966, the Sixers added a future Hall of Fame forward, Billy Cunningham. And with more chemistry between Chamberlain and the rest of his teammates, the Sixers finished the season with 55 wins, the most Wilt ever had in a season, and secured the best record in the NBA. Chamberlain led the NBA in scoring for the 7th time in a row, along with his 5th rebounding title, and led the NBA in field goal percentage for the 4th time, with averages of 33.5 points, 24.5 rebounds, and 54% shooting, which won him his 2nd MVP award. The Sixers played the first playoff series in the conference finals against the Celtics. And once more, the Celtics proved that the regular season and the playoffs are two different things. Wilt got his numbers again, averaging 28 and 30 in the series, but Boston had a better team. And with Havlicek and Sam Jones both averaging 25 points per game, the Celtics cruised to a 4-1 series victory. Nobody could really dispute Wilt's individual greatness, especially because in the deciding Game 5 of the Celtics series, the Big Dipper posted 46 points and grabbed 34 rebounds. It was his unprofessionalism and a lack of team camaraderie that was worrisome. Chamberlain's commitment to the team was doubted because he spent his nights partying in New York, sleeping late, and preferred to commute to Philadelphia rather than live there. Chamberlain was only available for training in the afternoon, and because Shays did not want to risk angering his best player, he scheduled the daily workout at 4 p.m., which angered the rest of the team. Furthermore, Wilt often missed practice and showed up minutes before the game started, which decreased the Sixers' morale and team chemistry. During the Eastern Conference Finals, sports journalist Joe McGinnis made a perfect comment that illustrated Wilt's lack of commitment to the team, saying that the Celtics played like champions and the Sixers just played. After the season, Shays was replaced by Alex Hannum, who was the only coach who had the courage to stand up to Wilt. Before the 1967 season started, Hannum addressed several key issues, and despite Wilt wanting to fight him on multiple occasions, the coach never backed down, winning Chamberlain's respect. Hannum challenged Wilt to act like a man on and off the court, and said that if he ever wanted to win the championship, he needed to be more involved with the team and focus more on defense while letting his teammates score the ball more. Desperate to win the title, Wilt bought into Hannum's ideas, shooting a career-low 14 shots per game, compared to the 31 attempts he was averaging in his first 7 seasons. And in spite of the fact that Wilt was scoring less, he started winning more. The Sixers won 68 games in the regular season, which was an NBA record at the time, and it's still the Sixers' record to this day. Wilt averaged 24 points and 24 rebounds per game, along with a career-high 7.8 assists, and shooting 68% from the field, which was another NBA record, and an improvement of 14 percentage points from his previous record of 54% from the 65 season. Of course, Chamberlain won the MVP award, but what he cared about the most was the playoffs. With the newly revisited playoff rules, where teams with the best record no longer had a bye in the first round, the Sixers got past Oscar Robertson's Cincinnati in the conference semis. However, in the conference finals, the Celtics were there once again, in what was the biggest test of Chamberlain's career. But this time, there were no more parties before the games and arriving minutes before tip-off. Wilt was more focused than ever, and the Sixers convincingly won the first 3 games of the series. Boston bounced back in Game 4, but that's all they could do, as 5 Sixers scored 20 or more in the deciding Game 5, which the Sixers won 140-116. Wilt finally defeated Bill Russell in the playoffs, but the job wasn't finished yet. In the NBA Finals, against his former team, the San Francisco Warriors, and their new superstar Rick Barry, Wilt had to confirm his status as the best player in basketball. And even though Barry had a monster series, averaging 40 points per game, while Wilt only averaged 17, it was once again proven that basketball is a team game. Wilt was only the 5th leading scorer on the Sixers, with Hal Greer, Chet Walker, Wally Jones, and Billy Cunningham all averaging over 20 points. Philadelphia finally won the championship, winning the finals 4-2. It is wonderful to be a part of the greatest team in basketball. Being a champion is like having a big round glow inside of you, the exhilarated Wilt said after the finals. However, the honeymoon and Wilt's selfless act wouldn't last long. After winning the championship, Wilt demanded more money from the Sixers owner, as Wilt demanded 25% of the franchise after he retired. Eventually, they settled for a $250,000 contract for the 1968 season, the largest deal in the NBA at the time. On the court, Wilt continued to play team-first basketball, averaging a career-high 8.6 assists per game, along with 24.3 points and 23.8 rebounds. The Sixers once again dominated the regular season, winning 62 games, with Wilt winning his 4th MVP award. In the Eastern semis, Philadelphia got past the Knicks in 6 games, but they paid a heavy price after Billy Cunningham, their 3rd-best player, got injured and was ruled out for the season. In the East Finals, the Celtics and Bill Russell were eagerly waiting, wanting to avenge the loss from the previous year. However, the Sixers took a 3-1 series lead, and at the time, no team ever rallied back from a 3-1 deficit. But then, the Celtics made history, winning the next 3 games and advancing to the finals, with Chamberlain scoring just 14 points on 4 for 9 shooting in a deciding Game 7, not attempting a single field goal in the second half of the game. After the season concluded, Coach Alex Hannum retired, and with him gone, the everlasting contract disputes with the Sixers owner, and the desire to play in a bigger city, Chamberlain wanted out too. The only problem was that, at the time, free agency didn't exist, and players with expiring contracts could only sign for the team they played, unless management decided to let them go for free. Of course, that wasn't the case with Chamberlain, who essentially didn't have a choice but to re-sign with the 76ers. And yet, there was a loophole. Wilt threatened the Sixers that he'd retire from the NBA and sign a deal with a team in the ABA. Not willing to lose Wilt for nothing, the Sixers yielded, trading Wilt to the Los Angeles Lakers for Darrell Imhoff, Archie Clark, and Jerry Chambers, marking the first time ever that a reigning league MVP was traded the following season. And for the 68-69 season, Wilt formed the first NBA super team with Elgin Baylor and Jerry West, and everyone expected them to win titles. And everything went according to plan, as the Lakers won 55 games in the regular season and made the NBA Finals after defeating the Warriors and the Hawks. Against the aging Boston Celtics, the Lakers entered the finals as 3-1 favorites, and they justified those odds initially, winning the first 2 games at home. But the Celtics bounced back and evened the series, winning Game 4 in the final second after a clutch basket by Sam Jones. Wilt, who was barely looking at the basket in the first 4 games, finishing with a career-low 4 points in Game 2, propelled the Lakers to victory in Game 5 with 13 points and 31 rebounds. And after the Celtics won another home game, it was all to be decided in another Game 7 between Wilt and Bill Russell. Now, with the home team winning every game of the series, the Lakers were confident of winning the title in front of their crowd. They were so confident that they filled up the Los Angeles Forum with thousands of balloons, planning to drop them on the floor after the Lakers won the championship. When Russell and the Celtics saw that, they played arguably the hardest they ever played. And after 3 quarters, Boston led 91-76. Chamberlain, who was battling a knee injury, was glued to the bench in the 4th quarter. But miraculously, the Lakers started to come back, thanks to Jerry West and the reserve center Mel Counts. With 3 minutes to go, the Lakers trailed 103-102, and Wilt wanted to come back into the game. But Lakers coach Van Bredekolf wouldn't hear it, as he had a distaste for Chamberlain's attitude, and he wanted to prove a point that he could win the title without him. Wilt never went back into the game, and the Lakers lost 108-106, marking the 7th time that Russell defeated Wilt in the playoffs. After the series, Bill Russell stated that any injury, short of a broken leg or a broken back, is not enough, which caused a rift in his relationship with Wilt and resulted in them not speaking for 2 decades, after they had been good friends for years. Coach Van Bredekolf was fired after his stubbornness to return Wilt to the game, and for the 1970 season, the Lakers were once again considered title favorites, especially because Bill Russell retired. Under new coach Joe Mulaney, Wilt started the season strong, averaging 32 points and 20 rebounds per game over the first 9 games of the season. But then, a disaster, as he suffered a ruptured patellar tendon, which forced him out of play until the last few games of the regular season. The Lakers were still good enough to make the playoffs without Wilt, and when he returned for the playoffs, LA defeated the Suns and the Hawks to reach another NBA Finals, this time against the New York Knicks. New York took a 3-2 series lead, but without the injured Willis Reed for for Game 6, Wilt put up a vintage performance with 45 points and 27 rebounds, leading the Lakers to victory. However, the hobbled Reed returned in Game 7, limping on the court, but providing a huge morale boost for the Knicks, who provided one of the biggest playoff upsets in NBA history. The Knicks led by 27 points at halftime, essentially winning the game in the first 24 minutes. The final score was 113-99, and Chamberlain came up empty-handed once more. In 1971, Elgin Baylor played just 2 games before suffering a season-ending knee injury. And after Jerry West went down before the playoffs, the Lakers were doomed. Even though they got past the Bulls in the first round, they got crushed by Kareem and the Bucks, losing in 5 games. For the 1972 season, Elgin Baylor decided to give it a go. After just 9 games, he re-injured his knee and was forced to retire. However, even without their star small forward and the advanced age of Wilt and Jerry West, the Lakers thrived. Behind the stellar play of guard Gail Goodrich, who averaged 26 points per game, and strong defense led by Chamberlain, the Lakers won an NBA record 69 games in the regular season, including a 33-game win streak, which still stands as the longest win streak in NBA history. In the playoffs, LA swept the Bulls and then defeated the reigning champions Milwaukee in 6 games to reach another NBA Finals against the Knicks. And despite the Knicks winning Game 1, the Lakers dominated the rest of the series behind a balanced offense and 5 players averaging more than 14 points per game. Gail Goodrich was the leading scorer with 25 points per game, but Wilt wasn't far behind with 19 points and 23 rebounds per game. And after a dominant performance in the deciding Game 5 with 24 points, 29 rebounds, 8 assists, and 8 blocked shots, Chamberlain was named the Finals MVP. In the following 1973 NBA season, Wilt broke his own record and shot 72.7% from the field, despite taking just 7 shots per game, averaging a career-low 13 points. But the Lakers made the finals again. But with West and Wilt battling injuries, the healthy Knicks didn't have too much trouble, and they easily won in 5 games. Wilt initially wanted to come back for one more season, but after another contract dispute, he instead signed with the ABA's San Diego Conquistadors, where he was supposed to be a player coach. However, the Lakers took Chamberlain to court, and the judge decided that Wilt wasn't legally able to play in the ABA, after which Wilt retired and he never played pro basketball again. When he stopped playing, the Big Dipper was the all-time leading scorer with 31,419 career points and led in points per game with 30.1. Chamberlain still holds the record for rebounds per game, total rebounds, and minutes played per game. All of those records will never get broken, just like his numerous scoring records, namely the 50 points Will averaged in the 1962 season, most consecutive 40-point games, or most consecutive 30-point games. If the NBA counted blocks during his era, Wilt would probably be the all-time leader in blocks, too. But despite being the most dominant force the NBA had ever seen, with the greatest individual statistics, the feeling about Wilt is that he should have won more. Chamberlain played in 29 playoff series and won 18, with 11 of his losses mostly coming against Bill Russell, who defeated Chamberlain's teams 7 times, with only 1 series going Wilt's way. Does it mean that Bill was a better player than Wilt? No, it doesn't, because Wilt was a far superior scorer and much more athletic than Bill. But Wilt was also very egotistical, very stubborn, and he mostly operated with a my way or the highway style. In 1968, when his Sixers won 68 games and finally defeated Bill Russell in the playoffs, that was the only season where Wilt played with a team concept, fully utilizing his own and his teammates' abilities with one clear goal in mind: to win. That was the year Wilt played like Bill Russell always played, and because Chamberlain was a better individual player, his team won. If he played like Russell his whole career, Wilt's individual numbers would probably have been lower, but his championship tally would likely be higher. And that's the beauty and the myth of Wilt Chamberlain. Yes, he wanted to win, but he wanted Wilt to win and look good with gaudy numbers, rather than his team winning. Chamberlain's greatest flaw was that he wanted to be liked by the crowds, because in his heart, he was more of an entertainer, a nice guy, rather than a ruthless winner like Bill Russell or Jordan or Kobe. If he wanted to, Wilt could have dunked the ball on almost every possession, but he didn't want to do that. So he started doing finger rolls and fadeaways. Chamberlain found dunking boring. and didn't want crowds to view him as a big brute who was dominating because of his physical strength, even though his physical advantage over the competition was greater than Shaq's advantage over the other centers in the 90s and early 2000s. The same thing was true with assists. After one newspaper article called him a selfish player, Wilt averaged over 8 assists per game the following season, just to prove him wrong, even though it wasn't necessarily the best thing for his team. During his 5-year stint with the Lakers, Chamberlain averaged only 11 field goal attempts per game, which was detrimental to his team, as he had the advantage almost every night, and he should have scored more in order for the Lakers to be the best possible team. But Wilt always wanted to do things his way. He was always a loner, an individual force who rarely got tamed enough to function within a team concept. And Wilt, who was an extremely intelligent man, knew that and didn't shy away from it.
If Wilt Chamberlain played for the Boston Celtics, he would have taken away from maybe a Heinsohn, maybe a Sam Jones, maybe a Cousy, because I could put the ball in the basket and I would take some of their shots away from them. And that might not have been for the perfect team.
But the world needs heroes, and it needs villains. Wilt desperately wanted to be the hero, even though the villain role suited him better. His rivalry with Russell is the greatest rivalry in NBA history, together with Bird's rivalry with Magic. And Wilt played his part perfectly, pushing the NBA forward, bending the record books, and forcing rule changes. He was a trailblazer for players' rights and modern free agency, not to mention that he was the biggest attraction when the league desperately needed superstars to survive. And because of that, Wilt Chamberlain will always be remembered as one of the most legendary athletes ever, whose records will live forever. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, we have another one for you right here.